Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Muhammad Talib, Lecture in English. Today we are going to talk about literary terms, and today's literary term is graveyard poets. Say, what exactly is the meaning of the term graveyard poets? Graveyard poet is a group of 18th century poets who wrote melancholic and meditative poems. The theme of these poems was death and mortality. These poems were usually set in the graveyard. Let's look at the definition of graveyard poets. Graveyard poets is a group of 18th century poets who wrote melancholic poems, usually set in the graveyard, on the theme of human mortality. So it is obvious from the definition that graveyard poet is a group of 18th century poets. They wrote melancholic and sad poems. These poems were set in the graveyard and they wrote on mortality and death. What are the characteristics of graveyard poets? Let's look here. They wrote melancholic poems. Their poems were melancholic and their poems were meditations on death and afterlife. Their poems were set in the graveyard and they lamented for the dead person. So these are the characteristics of graveyard poets. Now let's look who are the graveyard poets. Thomas Gray is a graveyard poet and he wrote an elegy which is known as Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, and this was written in 1751. Thomas Parnell is the next graveyard poet. He wrote Night, Peace and Death, and it was published in 1721. Edward Young is the next graveyard poet. He wrote Night's Thought, and it was published in 1742. And Robert Blair is the next graveyard poet. He wrote The Grave, and it was published in 1743. So this is all about graveyard poets. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.